My name is Mark Lanza, and I'm president of the Motion Picture Sound Editors. Welcome to our Sound Device event for August 5th, 2021, Sound Designing with Krotos, featuring Matthew Collings. I'm a fan and owner of the Krotos products myself. We are still holding our events virtually at this time due to COVID. I would also like to welcome our CAS friends who are attending tonight's event. Our event from last week, creating soundtracks for a scripted television, was posted to our YouTube channel this morning, and all of our past events are featured there. We have more Sound Device events coming up, so please check your email and the MPSE Facebook page for details. To see the latest edition of our quarterly newsletter, please go to mpse.org. Our next issue will have a cover story on Dennis Drummond, who is this year's MPSE Career Achievement recipient. You can also see our MPSE merchandise line there, and if you're not yet a member, you can always see the requirements and fill out an application. I would like to introduce the MPSE Board of Directors member, Eric Marks. He is our Sound Device Events panel head and set up tonight's event. So Eric, please take it away.
Thank you, Mark. Tonight we're joined by two very special guests. Our first guest is the head of marketing at Krotos, Sid Vell. Sid, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Our second guest is fascinated by sound, technology, and the collision of the two. He has worked in music, sound design, installation, and audio programming professionally since 2011, performing and exhibiting all over Europe and releasing numerous records. His music has been featured in trailers by Netflix as well as other companies. Please welcome the head of product at Krotos, Matt Collings. Matt, how are you doing tonight?
I'm great. Thanks for that very generous intro, Eric. And I want to thank Mark and everyone at the MPSE for having us back once more to show off our stuff to you guys. So what I'm going to show today is a blast through all of our major products. And I'm going to, rather than show each product in great detail or focus on the kind of features and functionality of each product, I'm just going to show them that are used in the line of fire, so to speak, with a certain bunch of video clips. So all the clips I'm going to use here are purely for educational and demonstrational purposes. None of it was to claim that we were used necessarily in the IP of any of these clips. So hopefully anyone who's involved in those projects smiles generously on this from where we sit. But I thought a lot of these were just really nice examples to show how the Krotos products can help you in your work. So that's really the purpose of today's demo and today's talk is to talk about the approach that we take and how it really helps people in the industry. So we like to think that we do this in a number of ways. So first of all, we help add elements of performance into sound design to picture through our various products that I'll go through. This helps add nuance and really can help bring content to life. And it can also help speed up workflow, which is something that everyone struggles with to try and work to the demands of a project. Something else that Krotos products are extremely helpful with is working at speed, but also responding to feedback. Can really help respond to notes, get variations and alternatives back really at high speed and with high quality as quickly as possible. And they're all really fun, really creative plugins that I love to use, and I know our users really enjoy using. So I'm going to go through 4 products, hopefully in the space of about 30 to 40 minutes, and then we'll take questions. I prefer to maybe just keep the questions till that point. So if you've got a burning question about a particular product, just keep it there in your mind, and I'll cover it and track back and try and answer as best as I can at that point. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at our plugin Dehumanizer 2, which is one of our flagship products, and it's been around for quite a few years now. And I know some of you guys maybe even have it and use it or may have heard of it. So what is Dehumanizer 2? It is basically a vocal processing system. And it's a really unique plugin that's been really tailored for initially for like monster and creature design. That's kind of where it kind of made its name, really. The idea is that you can start to do this in real time, perform with your voice, and make really powerful results really, really quickly. Today, I'm actually going to show it in use for processing dialogue and character design. So I've got a little scene here from, it's actually from a Netflix series called Next Gen. And we've got a little scene here with two robots. And yeah, it's a very, very brief thing. We've got a little smaller security robot, and we've got a larger main character that is looking for this little girl who's also in the scene. So I've left the subtitles on, and having seen this clip, I thought this was a nice demonstration of some of the dialogue capabilities of the plugin. So as you will hear, I am no voice actor, but what this example is quite good at showing is that how you can use the plugin to sort of do character design and bring some dialogue to life and help it embed it into the scene, and also like play around with that and come up with your own treatment that really feels unique and helps gel it into the scene and can help you quickly and easily all from in one window, which was something that really helped me put this together. And I was able to do this really quickly, like in under 15-20 minutes. So I recorded some VO for this scene. And like I say, I'm not a voice actor. So let's hear what this sounds like, just nice and clean. This was just done in this room with this mic. And I tried to put a slight characterization into the performance for each character to give me a good starting point. Obviously, when you're working with great talent, you won't have this problem at all. But so just for starting point, let's just hear what the VO I managed to put together really quickly, what that sounded like as a starting point for our scene.
Listen, champ, you're definitely not allowed out here. That girl needs this bag. We're going to hang out, become best buds, and share a meaningful journey of discovery. Why don't we go ahead and get you back inside? Protocol's the word. Come on.
And so, first of all, can everyone hear the sound correctly? If you can't, please let us know. So yeah, like I say, you can now hear my appalling voice acting, including my terrible attempt to do American accents. So we've got that now. Obviously, that just does not fit with our scene. This doesn't really help us. So what I'm going to do now is I've got an instance of the plugin on both those tracks. Now I'm going to turn them on and let's play it again. And then we'll sort of work through what I've actually done there.
Listen, champ, you're definitely not allowed out here. That girl needs this bag. We're going to hang out, become best buds, and share a meaningful journey of discovery. Why don't we go ahead and get you back inside? Protocol's the word. Come on.
Okay, so for me, that's a much more effective approach to the scene. And how the plugin helped me achieve that was that because of the way it's designed and it's tailored to have, you know, all the kind of tools that you might want to reach for when doing character design and vocal treatment for dialogue and creature stuff, it makes it really easy to design stuff in the box and all within that one window. So it's actually really, really efficient. So I started off actually by going through a bunch of dialogue presets, various sci-fi ones. I think I landed on maybe the flanged human as a starting point. Let me just play this back and see what this one's like for these lines.
That girl needs this bag.
Yeah.
We're going to hang out, become best buds, and share a meaningful journey of discovery.
Okay, so I think that's where I started, and this not quite right about that. So what I did then was track back, and using this node-based system, I built up my preset, which ended up being a little bit like this. So as you can see, you can have all these different modules, and if you need some more modules or you want to try something else, you just click and drag down into this workspace, and then you can start hooking them up with these little virtual cables. So it's a really great like playground and a kind of workspace to just explore putting different processes together, how they connect with one another. Obviously, you can see in this one here, I've got various parallel processes. We've got actually fairly complex routing going on, but it's really easy to manage. It's really easy to see what's going on. Just by clicking on any one of these modules, we can start to, you know, work back and track back, see what's going on, and then make something that's actually really complex, but really quickly and really easily. So if I start to work through,
that girl needs this bag. We're going to hang out, become best buds, and share a meaningful journey of discovery.
So yes, if I start to work through this patch and what's going on, so per module, I can bypass each thing, I can mute it, I can solo it. Just clicking on it shows me what's going on inside. I can even open a little panel and I can have some little macros which are quickly assigned and quickly manageable. But now from that fairly complex workflow, I can figure out what's going on. I can quickly experiment by routing different things into different into different modules. If I decided that actually I want to put a ring mod in this somewhere as well, I can just add like a connection here, run this like in parallel as well. Maybe just for the sake of argument, let's just try that right now, see what happens. And then I'll just connect that to the output.
That girl needs this bag. We're going to hang out, become best buds, and share a meaningful journey of discovery.
And actually running that in parallel as well with a lower frequency than it started off actually added quite a nice layer. But what I could then do is experiment further, and then maybe actually I might like another section of that to run into the flanger or into the pitch shifter to just to gel the whole thing together. I can do that just as simply as this, adding in a little layer there, connecting it up, and let's see what that sounds like.
That girl needs this bag. We're going to hang out, become best buds, and share a meaningful journey of discovery.
Okay, cool. So again, that just helps gel the whole thing together, and then per module, you've got obviously the actual core controls, but you've also got an EQ and a limiter, like on each single module, and you've also got a gate. So you can set up these like quite complex systems. Either you can have individual processing modules like triggering over certain amplitude thresholds if you've got a really dynamic performance, or you've got a very dynamic dialogue and you want that processing to be really relate to that performance. That can be done really, really easily, all within this one thing, which is a really fantastic, powerful thing. So looking at the second character we have here now, on my little moody security robot.
Listen, champ, you're definitely not allowed out here.
So when I just looked at the scene, I kind of think this guy is a little moody. Yeah, he's always a little moody. He's a little security guard. He's maybe got a slight Napoleon complex going on there and needs to assert his authority. So I kind of wanted something that was a little aggressive, but obviously you don't want to just mangle the hell out of this thing. We need to always maintain the intelligibility of the dialogue. So again, I started with a bunch of presets, and that gave me a good idea of where I wanted to go. And then basically I just started to build up a preset until I got to what you hear now. So I thought I would just repeat this process and maybe just experiment quickly and see where we can get. So
listen, champ, you're definitely not allowed out here.
Okay, so that's our started dialogue. So let me just walk you through the process of like how we might build up that character. So I'm going to start with a classic ring mod effect. Okay, let's just see what it sounds like.
Listen, champ, you're definitely not allowed out here.
Okay, so classic ring mod processing. We've already got something that sounds intelligible, reminds me a little bit of like one of those classic Star Wars dialogue things. And that's cool, but we want something that maybe is a bit more unique to this scene. So let's try, for example, a flanger. And just for the sake of argument, let's just try it in series.
Listen, champ, you're definitely not allowed out here.
Okay, that's not too bad either. I wondered what would happen if we added our noise generator here, just to kind of grit up the whole process a little bit. So let's try that, and we'll put it into the flanger.
Listen, champ, you're definitely not allowed out here. Listen, champ, you're definitely not allowed out here.
So that's adding a bit of bite. It's not really it's not too audible, but if I route this now in parallel out to the output, let's see what effect that has.
Listen, champ, you're definitely not allowed out here.
Okay, so just bringing that up a little bit is just giving a little bit more grit for us, and we can obviously just EQ that particular module just a little bit to take out anything harsh. Okay, so we're getting there. We're getting something that's I would say usable for sure. But again, the thing I really love about doing this type of work in this environment is that we are free to experiment very easily using all sorts of different processes, and we can recall these, experiment, and it's all in this one place, which is really cool. So rather than having to constantly jump back and forth between multiple windows, multiple plugins, you've got everything that you need like right here straight away. And obviously the presets that we've got a really good starting point, but as you can see, if you need to build up something unique quickly, that's also a really easy thing to do. So I'm just going to try one more thing using one of the really unique Dehumanizer processes here called Spectral Shifting. See what this sounds like.
Listen, champ, you're definitely not allowed out here.
Let's play that again.
Listen, champ, you're definitely not allowed out here.
So this is quite an unusual process. So you've got this little sort of rangy slider here. So basically what this is doing is selecting a section of the frequency range and then pitch shifting it, but only shifting that section.
Listen, champ, you're definitely not allowed out here.
So you can start to get these kind of warped, really odd, warbly little sounds that can be really useful and quite interesting, particularly in a layer with some of the other processing I had. I think that would actually be quite nice just to add this, this little annoying little guy and he's kind of feeling a bit limited. That could be a really nice element. So why don't we try something else really quickly, just in case we've got a director looking over our shoulder and we need something else.
Listen, champ, you're definitely not allowed out here. Listen, champ, you're definitely not allowed out here.
In fact, I probably want to pitch that one up as well.
Listen, champ, you're definitely not allowed out here.
Okay, yeah, so you can see how quickly we can make alternatives and really respond to the performance. If I'm doing this, even better, if I'm doing this with an actor who's in the booth, they're able to do this all in real time and you can experiment and create this character, including the processing together, which is a really, really valuable thing to do, because then you can feed off their performance and likewise they can feed off the processing that you're working with. And that's a really fantastic option to have at your fingertips for designing on these type of dialogue and working with these type of scenarios. So yeah, so there we go. That's just a very quick example of how the Dehumanizer plugin, Dehumanizer 2, can help you handle your dialogue. If you're doing other types of character design, like for instance, monsters or fantastical creatures and stuff, there's actually quite a lot of stuff out there online about how people have used it. It's been used like all over the industry. I think one of my classic ones was in Stranger Things to do loads of the vocals, particularly I think it's in season 2, was used to a great deal for some of the creatures there, and a really, really powerful thing to have in your toolbox for doing this type of design. Okay, so just because I'm short on time, I'm gonna keep moving on. I'm gonna look at a different example and with a different clip. So I'm gonna show another clip now. Obviously, there's no sound to this now, but this is actually from The Witcher 3. That's a video game that some of you guys might be familiar with. And we're just going to do a little redesign here, and we're going to do the cloth foley of Geralt, our main character here. And what we're going to do for that is we're going to use Reformer Pro. I somehow have 2 instances of it in one thing, so I'm going to get rid of that. There. Not sure what happened in that plugin chain. Cool. Okay, there we go. Right. So Reformer Pro is another one of our kind of flagship products. It's really, really cool and a really unique plugin. It can help in loads of different ways. So what is it? First and foremost, I like to think of it as a kind of sound design instrument. Basically, it allows you to perform sound effects and sounds. And how you do that is by using pre-recorded sound. So pre-recorded libraries that we have designed or that you have yourself in your own library and you can analyze using the plugin. And then what it does is basically analyzes incoming audio and matches that with sections of particular recorded audio that you're connecting to it. So in this case, I've got various type of cloth and movement Foley libraries I put together here. So we've got a canvas bag, we've got like a leather jacket, we've even got some sort of armor. And this is all pre-recorded stuff. And the plugin is going to be reshaping audio that I fed into it and using that audio to replace the audio that I fed into it. Okay, so that may seem a little bit abstract if you've not used the plugin or heard of it before. So let's hear it in action. Okay, so we've got some cloth foley there, and it's quite a layered sound, but you can hear that it sounds actually pretty realistic, and it's got that really responsive movement, generally speaking, to what we saw on screen. Now, to take a step back and go under the hood then to see how we've managed to do that, this is where the fun really starts. So, like I said, it's a sound design instrument, and you can perform it using any audio input. So I just used my microphone here, and I used my voice to perform that Foley. So I turn the plugin off now, and you'll hear what I recorded and are feeding into the plugin to get that result. Okay, so nowhere near impressive and slightly embarrassing, but I'm used to that by demonstrating this for quite some time now. Okay, so yeah, like you said, I was just kind of gesticulating with my voice to match the movement on screen, and then the plugin is taking those movements and is feeding them into those libraries that we looked at there to produce that cloth Foley movement. And literally this was one take. It took me however long as this is, so like 30 seconds, and I've got some fairly usable like cloth Foley in here really, really fast. The great thing then about the workflow using Reformer Pro and using our products for this type of thing is that once you've got that performance in and you like it, you can then edit it because it's audio. And then once you've got it in there, you can just, mix between the libraries that are being used to adjust that sound. So for example, if I go back now and I'm just going to move the puck. So I'm moving the puck around the screen here to essentially mix between the different cloth layers that I've got. So if we decide that, okay, yeah, it needs to be a little bit less leathery, or it needs to be a bit more, X, Y, and Z, we can use this to mix between those libraries. Or if we find that something that we've got in there isn't actually right, but other parts are, we can simply just replace that library with something else. So it's like replacing it with a layer of pre-recorded audio, only that audio is now perfectly synchronized to the performance that I did. So a great example for this was, so this is from like the Witcher series, and one of my colleagues at Krotos is a really big fan of this series, and he pointed out very quickly that although this was a good performance, there was something actually wrong with my choice of sounds, because Geralt does not wear plate armor. And he was like, yeah, it sounds convincing, but he doesn't wear plate armor, so that's actually wrong. So it was actually really easy for me to respond to that feedback, which I really welcome. So all I need to do is actually go into this layer of plate armor. I could either just mute it, or I could maybe add in like a different like Foley layer, or as you can see, I've got tons and tons of stuff in my library here of, tons of different categories. But, I can go through and just select any, texture or whatever I have. So for example, let's switch out the plate armor for something else, like another sort of cloth layer. What about just like a simple jacket Foley layer? Let's see what that sounds like. Okay, something a bit more gentle. So if I then sort of match this kind of back where we were. Cool. So now I don't have to worry about my my plate armor layer anymore. It's just gone. I've just switched it out for something else. You can even go so far as to go into each of these individual libraries that we've loaded and mute even individual takes or sounds to really sort of carefully curate what the algorithm is starting to choose from. As you can see, I've got an enormous amount of stuff in this library that I built up. A lot of this is from our own libraries that we sell, but but some of it is from my own library myself that I've just built up, and it's just a fantastic like asset to have in your arsenal, because no matter what type of effect you're wanting to do, if you have a particular shape or idea in your head, using your voice or another layer in the mix as the input is a really powerful thing, because you can suddenly add like a water layer or a kind of flashy layer or a sci-fi layer to a design and use something that's already there, get something to resemble, not even resemble, to exactly get that shape, and just add texture and performance to things like really, really quickly. So it's a super powerful, super flexible tool for helping you do Foley or any other type of design. So as another example I've got here, and I'll just show another use case here. So I'm going to jump from my Foley preset here to my walking in the grass preset, and we'll see why that is in just one sec when we see the clip. So the next clip is this saber-toothed tiger who's just walking along, and obviously need to lay, I need to, cut some sound to this. So, particularly now when we're all working at home, maybe I don't have access to a Foley studio, or, maybe I'm working on a really low budget project and they simply don't have a budget for Foley. This is a great tool for you to have. So again, I used my voice to just sync up to these footsteps. Okay, so again, that's just a single take. I wouldn't say that's the perfect take, but I think it's, it's respectable. It's a good starting point. Now, using a different collection of libraries, but that same workflow, I've got some shoes on twigs here, some grass rustling. I've actually got some fruit squashing. And I've gone into this and I realized that I've got a lot of there's particular fruit sounds in here that I didn't want. So I had these kind of apple core sounds that didn't really fit. So I'm using this as a kind of mud layer, and I've got some other sort of leaves and twigs sound here as well. So if we hear this back now. So we can use that vocal take to control and produce that sort of walking Foley. Obviously in the footage he's not, actually walking on grass, but maybe our director or showrunner does actually want that effect. And we can simply say, right, more grass, more twigs, more mud, all these type of things, and away we go. So after laying that down, I decided to pop in another layer of the plugin. And I'm just going to jump to the default for this one. So, as we could see, so I'm just going to mute these and just play the track on its own. So as you can see, obviously we've got some vocalizations going there as well. So what I wanted to do was add in this as well to demonstrate what we can do in terms of animal design and get this stuff in, and we can get some really realistic animal effects by using the plugin as well. So I'm going to load in my Bengal tiger library here. I'm actually going to close that and open it up just to kind of kickstart it. There we go, perfect. So, okay, I'm going to go up to the Bengal tiger, and let's hear that as well with my other instance of the plugin as well. Okay, great. So now we've managed to put that vocalization in as well, and that again is just an appalling sounding vocalization for me. Just to roughly match what I can see on screen. And now again, the great way of working in this way is I can just do another take. If I feel that what I've done there is just not matching, or is not really very helpful, I can do another take and edit together. I can take existing audio that I've already got and feed that in. But just laying it down with your voice, even just as a guide, is such a powerful and quick way of working that, I could get cut sound in for this scene, really, really fast, just really in a couple of minutes. And that's a fantastic resource. And that's just a really fast way of working. So that's just 2 use cases for Reformer Pro. It's a really, really powerful product that can be used for Foley, for design, for all sorts of tons and tons of stuff. James, who was just on the call, who's on the call now, we were just talking right at the beginning of the session about how he was using that to do sort of underwater effects on the show he was working on very recently as well, just for another little quick example of what we could do with that plugin. So, okay, so moving on, and as I said, I'm going to blast through loads of stuff here. Let's take a look at Weaponizer. So this is another plugin that we have, and called Weaponizer because we originally designed it to do weapon sound design, which is what I'm going to show here. But something that I didn't show in the previous scene, which I'll actually just very quickly go back to now, is you can use it for tons and tons of different stuff, not just actually like weapons and firearms. So if I go back to my Witcher scene, I quickly have added in 2 more instances here for some of those little not weapons, so the actual like combat effects. So just gonna jump slightly back to that other scene because I forgot to mention this first time around. So here we go, swap back to the Foley, same instance of the plugin. Let's run again. Okay, so for the helmet impact and this gory knife effect, I'm actually using Weaponizer. So I'm using our battle bundle to do that, and I've selected a preset that's actually a shield hit, which is obviously kind of wrong, but it felt right for that hit on the guy's metal helmet. And as you can see, it's a really tailored sound design sampler. And one of the great things about it is every time I'm hitting fire in the plugin, I'm getting a different variation of this design that has been designed as a preset. That's a great thing because then you don't have to worry about having to vary these things in your DAW and in your session. You can just think about popping in a single MIDI trigger for this preset, synchronizing it up, and away you go. Another great thing about that workflow then, once you've got those triggers in, is that it's very easy to respond to feedback and try other ideas. So I'm actually going to go with a straight up weapon design idea here for my next clip and show how that might work. So okay, here we go. So let's see what it sounds like. Okay, so we've got a guy in spaceship and he's shooting off a weapon. So the real power of the Weaponizer workflow here is that I'm just using these little MIDI clips, and essentially I've just got a long note at C4, and I'm using the burst mode of the plugin here to create a rapid fire weapon. So if I turn burst mode off, we'll see that I'm just getting the first round of these bursts. But if I've got this scenario and obviously you need something that's an automatic weapon, that's really easily achieved by just taking the plugin and putting it into burst mode. And just by extending the note, I can make that last as long or as little as the burst appears on screen, which is fantastic. And then once I've designed this preset, I can use it all over the scene, the episode, the series by just recalling it in whatever sense, processing it with a different environment, mixing that differently, etc., etc. But another great thing about this workflow now is if we decide that we've got the synchronization here now, but that sounds just not right, I can just go and choose something else. So let me try a different preset. So from our Robotic Lifeforms 2 pack, I'm going to try this one called the Mega Cannon. Let's see what that one's like. Just with the same triggers and the same footage. Let's try again. Okay, so that's syncing, but you can see the burst, the actual fire rate's not right. So all I need to do is actually just speed up that fire rate. Okay, so that's another option. That could work. That'd be quite helpful. Obviously, this would work for real world weapons as well. So a library that we've not actually released. This is a hot news for MPSE. It comes out actually next week. We worked with a Soundmorph to implement their intervention SWAT library. So I'm actually just going to pop in like an M16 here in an interior environment. As a burst preset as well, and see how this turns out. Okay, that's not bad. Maybe I want to try a silenced, suppressed M16. Sorry, the burst rate on that is maybe a little too fast. I can just adjust that. Great, and obviously we're in space here, so it wouldn't make much sense to actually use a straight up M16 preset, but this could be a great starting point for the design because you've got something real world that is recognizable that could then be processed inside the plugin using the inbuilt effects, or because the way that Weaponizer is set up, you can actually set up output. It's a multi-output plugin. So each of these can be output as stereo pairs into your session and processed separately, rendered separately. So you can use this as a jumping off point for doing that design, but you've got a kind of real world starting point here, which could be, really powerful and a really, really good start. And obviously, the fact that we're now using more real world weapons is going to be much more applicable to probably most of the use cases and the features that we've got. So we can just switch between different weapons and different environments. So again, if I maybe jump to a different weapon now, let's try this one, the SIG 552 in an urban environment. Okay, so again, it's not quite right to the scene, but you still sort of get the point of how flexible the workflow can become. And that's a really, really powerful thing to have, again, in your toolkit, just having it in your back pocket to say, actually, yeah, I need a different approach, or, obviously then you can be designing your own things. And it's an incredibly powerful, sound design sampler system for, enormous amounts of use cases. So another library that we released recently was from a sound designer called Mattia Salotto, who works in games. So just to show some other use cases of how this plugin could be helpful for you, especially for making loads and loads of different variations and, really powerful sounds outside of weapons. Really, really great way of working, in that you can just drag and drop your own samples into the plugin here and just produce big, flexible, varying layers of sound. So jumping away from our example here, this is a kind of it's called Fiery Electric Hybrid Impact. Let's just see what it sounds like. Okay, so we're using different layers to play, obviously different roles in that larger design, and we're using our sort of timeline here to sort of offset them, much like you would, vertically in a DAW, but you've got this all within this single environment. But obviously, once you've populated this with sounds and you've made this design, everyone is going to be different. So if you need, 20 different variations of something, or even a couple, this is a fantastic thing to have, and you can make these enormous things really fast. Or for another example, maybe we want to do, we need some UI design really quickly. We can use this again to generate lots and lots of material that can then be edited up. Using factory stuff, your own stuff, and to work super fast. This is actually a really big patch which is loading slowly, so I probably should have chosen a smaller patch to demonstrate that speed. Okay, there we go. Okay, yeah, so again, this is using burst mode, and you can see it's got tons of variation on every time something is triggered. So we're using the plugin to just make these little systems and then use that to create tons and tons of material that we could apply flexibly, like elsewhere. So similar type of approach, really, in that it's a flexible, easy to use, but super powerful tool that can be used in lots of different ways. One other thing that I'm not going to demo right now, but what you can, another aspect of Weaponizer is that this is a MIDI instrument. And so each layer of the plugin, each engine, is assignable to a different MIDI note. So just having a keyboard, you can be triggering each of these layers separately, like directly in sync to screen, or just to experiment. And you can build up things that way as well, which is, again, just like a really fast way of working. Okay, so to continue my blast through the world of Krotos sound design, I'm going to move on finally to Igniter. So Igniter is our vehicle design system. So if I actually just kill the video for just one sec. So again, it's the difference with the approach that Igniter offers you is this is now a performable system. So just with my MIDI controller here, I can perform the RPM and the movement of this vehicle. So this is just the default preset, which is like a Ferrari. So I'm just going to turn this on and just drive this around. Okay, so that's going to be a really nice way of approaching the scene that I'm going to look at now. So just open this back up again, and we've got two cars in a tunnel. So a much more tangible example. And I'm going to use a variation on the Audi R8 preset here, and I've populated it with a reverb just to sort of gel it in. And so now I'll go again, and I'm just going to watch the second car, the car that comes up from the back, and I'm just going to like perform the movement of that vehicle directly to the scene now. So the one on the left. Okay, and then just really quickly, we've laid down that vehicle movement, and it's literally just from one instance of the plugin and just performing it directly in sync to screen using my MIDI controller. Really powerful thing to do if you don't have a particular vehicle in your library, or it's doing movements that your library doesn't cover. So fantastic way of working, very, very flexible. So again, just moving to a different example, we've got a more sci-fi clip here, or maybe even an electric vehicle, which is appearing, as we know, more and more in media these days, rather than combustion engines. So I'm going to open up the plugin again, and I'm going to just jump to a different preset, and I'm going to perform that one instead. So I'm going to try this electric sci-fi one here. Okay, right, now I'm just going to run the scene again. Okay, so again, there's not an enormous amount of movement on screen there, but I can quickly give that a little bit more life by adjusting those RPMs and, doing something that can just make that whole thing feel a lot more real really, really quickly. So you can sort of get the idea of how Igniter can help do these type of scenes quite quickly. So basically what's going on under the hood is you've got multiple engines of stuff like in Weaponizer, and we've got this sort of macro curve system up the top. And basically anything in the plugin can be dragged and dropped into this system and have curves applied to shape it. So again, you're kind of building like a little performable system. And then I'm using MIDI, but you can also use automation then to sort of drive this main control and essentially drive the vehicle, no matter what that is. If it's a combustion engine, Ferrari, like a Honda Civic, an electric vehicle, a helicopter, all this type of stuff can be just done and performed like directly to screen, which is kind of what we've done like consistently through this little demo. And that's kind of one of the things that these collection of products like allow you to do, just work quickly, laying this stuff down directly to screen, directly in sync in your DAW with one tool and in one window. So you can just get something down. It can be really powerful really quickly, and then you can move on to the next task that is there in your inevitably large backlog of sound design tasks that you've usually been asked to fulfill. Okay, so I realized that's probably been an enormous amount of information very, very quickly, and I hope you've managed to stay with me and it's been interesting. So that's a quick blast through everything that I wanted to go through, and I would love to hear your thoughts, questions, etc. And yeah, thank you very much for listening to me talk for an extended period of time. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt. That was really insightful and so much creativity you can put into this platform. For our audience out there, if you have any questions at all for Matt or this platform, any of the tools Matt has shown, please ask your questions in the chat here on Zoom. And we will start going through your questions and bringing them up to Matt. If you're watching this live on Facebook, you can add your questions in the comments. In the meantime, I'll jump in with a couple until we get some audience questions. Matt, how did Krotos come about originally?
Yeah, thanks. So Krotos was started by founder Orpheus, and it's actually started out as a master's degree project. Actually, the very first version of Dehumanizer that I think Mark used way back in the day was a standalone like application that started off as a university project basically, and Orpheus made a free version of it that was pretty rough and ready at the time, and sort of circulated that in the community and got a great response. And so then I joined sort of shortly after that and was part of the, making that into a commercial product. And we kind of just took that approach that we looked at in Dehumanizer, just real-time processing, trying to consolidate multiple tools into one place, making it fast and powerful and easy. And we've sort of grown the company through that aesthetic, really, through different use cases and different products, but always trying to maintain that DNA. And yeah, we've been a company for, I think, since 2015 now. So going strong and enlarging our team and customers every year. So yeah, it's been a fantastic thing to be part of.
That's amazing, and really pretty incredible amount of growth in just 6 years. We have a question from our very own Steve Urban. How do we get out of the plugin and into audio tracks that we can actually deliver to the stage? Yeah, I guess that's the end of this question.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Steve. So yeah, very simple. So I mean, obviously like a simple render, either online or offline. Obviously I'm showing this in repo today just simply for stability reasons over Zoom. I had some problems doing so in my version of Pro Tools, but everything you see here is obviously perfectly applicable in Pro Tools. A quick render like that for Igniter and Weaponizer, those are instruments as well with multiple stereo outs. I think each of them has 6, 7, or 8 stereo pairs that can be set up as separate tracks directly to the session. So if you want to, for instance, for doing like a layered design in Weaponizer, you can have each of those layers just go out to an audio track and just hit record, and out they're going to go, and you're going to render each of those stereo pairs out. And you can have those to send off as stems, or yeah, you can just record the output of those plugins or just render it in place. It's either way, really, whatever's more convenient.
We have a question from Israel. Are all the sound samples in the products customizable?
Yes, they are, absolutely. I think the only ones that maybe are not are the and when I say are not, so in Igniter, the actual combustion engine stuff through our custom granular engine, unfortunately you're not able to put your own assets into it, and the ones that are there, you can't get under the hood, so to speak, of what's going on there. But you can mix and match between engine exhausts and put in different things. But yeah, I think that's pretty much the only example of where you can't get really down to the micro level of each of these samples and packs. We do a lot of work now also with third parties. So today we released a fantastic explosions library in Weaponizer, which is really awesome. So now you can just use Weaponizer to just trigger certain explosions just with MIDI notes straight to screen. You get, when you get a library from us, you get I'm just loading these up just while I'm talking. So you get the presets, like the kind of implementation of the library. There we go, a little explosion for you. You get that you get those presets and all the assets needed, but you also get access to all those files. So like all of our stuff is not like a closed format. If I jump to Finder, you can see that this explosions library, I get access to all those files, and you can also have them as a zip. So this isn't shut away from you. If you want to then take any of these takes or assets or sweeteners and use them outside the plugin in combination with the plugin, you're welcome to do that. So it's a super flexible platform. So everything that you get, you can use in whatever way you see fit. So you get like the best of both worlds, really, in my opinion.
That's great. We have a question from Scott. Can all 4 of these be used as plugins in a DAW, and are all controls automatable in the DAW?
Yes, they can all be. They all work in a DAW. In fact, they don't work standalone. They have to run in a DAW. And yeah, everything you see is automatable. So particularly for Dehumanizer, Weaponizer, and Igniter, you've got, I don't know, 300-400 parameters that can be automated. So you get incredible power and control over these big systems. So you can literally just load up a preset and press fire, or you can have tiny control over every parameter in here if you want to and if you need to.
Great, thank you. Please keep your questions coming here on Zoom or on Facebook. Jump in with another one of my own until. Oh, here we go. We got one from Steve again. You mentioned an upcoming library from Soundmorph. How does the Weaponizer library differ from the original library from Soundmorph?
Great question. Thanks, Steve. I'm really glad you asked that one. So how it differs is you get the same library you get if you buy it from Soundmorph. You get that as a zip, and just like I've shown in Finder, you get all those files. However, you get those files put in to Weaponizer presets, like I've shown, like straight out of the box. So that's the real power of it. So you can use that library in a straight up way, or you can just load up presets like I've got in Weaponizer now and just start using them immediately once you install the library. So like I say, you get this like double the value, twice the power type workflow straight out the bat. So with the intervention one, you see we've designed the weapons that were recorded into presets. So you can see we've got, so for example, like let's just go to the 911 pistol. So these are ready to go straight up as single shots. And obviously each time I press fire, you're getting a different shot. So you're getting variation straight out of the box. You've then got the same thing in different environments, just as different presets. And we've also set those up as special burst presets, like I was demoing earlier. So now my burst can be as long as I want. And these are already set up and pre-configured. So the idea is that straight out of the box, you've got something workable that you can use straight to screen just using the plugin as well as the other library. So that's the power of it as I see it.
Very nice. Please keep your questions coming, everyone, if you have them. What sort of industry trends have you noticed in terms of these sorts of plugins and the needs of people, and how has that changed Krotos' approach to creating plugins?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, like everyone, and I'm sure everyone here will know, like, the expectations on projects and the timescales, just keep going, up, and it becomes more and more relentless. So that's a real trend for us. And what we found is, as you mentioned, that we've seen fantastic growth in our company and the use of the products because we help with these type of problems. We help people work faster, do a quicker turnaround, respond to feedback, be more creative, add nuance at high speed. And that type of workflow really helps when you're under those conditions. I think it was Angelo Palazzo, who's been a great advocate of our stuff as well over the years. And he said something like to me once, it was like, yeah, you're always under pressure, you're always under the gun, but always needing to be creative. And he finds that our plugins really help with that concern. And you guys know much more than I do about like the day-to-day pressures of it, but we've really found that these tools seem to really help you with those challenges. And that's a day-to-day thing that I hear back from all our clients all over the world in games, post, TV, film. That's the trend, and that doesn't seem to be stopping or slowing down, rather.
Yeah. Which of your products in recent days do you tend to get the most feedback about?
At the moment, I'm hearing a lot about Weaponizer. We've done a lot with the plugin, and we're releasing a lot of packs for it. So I think people are really aware of what it's doing and what it can do. And each time we release a new library, I think people start to realize what else you can do with it. So obviously I've already demoed a bunch of different use cases with it. But yeah, out of the box, you can use this for whooshes, magic, footsteps, trailer stuff, UI stuff, battle effects, demolition effects. This is, I love this one as well. Just tons and tons and tons of different stuff. So there we go. I'm just obliterating your ears with anything I can think of now. But yeah, we get a lot of feedback about Weaponizer, which is great. Reformer Pro is also a really popular one. We get lots and lots of requests about that, and we're continuing to work on that technology in the background, and hopefully have some new things to show you all. Hopefully next time I'm here as well.
We have a question from Israel. Do these plugins use a lot of RAM or processing CPU?
They shouldn't do, no. They're all optimized and are nice and light. But on some of the big patches in Weaponizer and Reformer Pro may take up more RAM. You can also load in your own libraries, obviously, to both products. Particularly with Reformer Pro, you can analyze your own samples. I haven't shown that here, but you can do that in this documentation on how to do that. And you can load in, I think it's up to 1 or 2 gig per each of these slots. But that shouldn't really bother a modern production system too much. So no, you should be able to run plenty of instances without too many problems.
We have another question from Steve regarding Dehumanizer. What kind of latency can you expect? He's just concerned about sync when heavily altering a voice.
Sure. So it depends what you're doing, basically. So a handy tool for you is actually this display in the output. So that latency is only going to be applicable when you're running a signal through it. If you are running it like I was doing, obviously you can have delay compensation inside the plugin that should sync everything back up again without too much effort. But if I was running a mic through this patch right now, we would have this latency. If I start removing patches, we see this latency go down. So you can measure that, and depending on what you're doing and what you need to do, you can see what that's going to be. So obviously, if I'm using a ring mod that doesn't require any FFT information, that latency is going to be pretty much close to 0. But this display is a really handy thing, because once I start building up my patch, you can manage that latency basically, and we display it for you to see. But if you're running the plugin like I did with pre-recorded audio, your delay compensation should be able to take care of all this stuff, and you shouldn't see or hear any difference, any issues with synchronization.
Wonderful. We have a question from Karen. With Weaponizer, what are the specific parameters that are customizable or adjustable per layer? It looks like there's speed, pitch, volume, EQ, and timing. Is there anything else?
So each of these engines contains these 4 samplers, basically, and you can load in up to 5 samples into each of these 4 samplers. So you can load in up to, I think it's 80 samples into the entire engine. And then each of these obviously has speed and level. These can be set, and then you can set a variation range as well for the speed and level of each of these for every trigger. You can also switch either of those parameters to an envelope, so wacky speed envelope and just nice amplitude envelope. Each of these engines also has a synthesizer built in as well, and each of them has a slightly different one. So each layer is supposed to be set up for a particular purpose. So on our thump layer for low end body, we've got a kind of almost like a kick drum synth there. So, and in the tail there's actually an impulse response reverb set in there. So broadly speaking, the engines are the same, and you've got these controls that are shared. But then on top of that, you've got a slightly different synthesizer engine and impulse response processing as well. But yeah, there's a sort of shared DNA across that sample engine. And then you've got an effects rack full of various effects and the timing engine as well.
Wonderful. Really great questions, everyone. Please keep them coming. Matt, what would you say is the most creative use of Krotos you've ever heard from a user?
Oh, that's a great question. I I mean, my personal favorite is Paula Fairfield when she was using Reformer Pro on Game of Thrones, and she used it to do the a lot of movement stuff actually for the dragons. So I think she already had the vocalizations and stuff down, but she needed like layers of texture as they moved, and to cut that by hand was just going to take days. So I think she used other elements of those designs, fed them into Reformer Pro to get that. And as I recall, I think she used a lot of like texture stuff like ice stuff. And I believe at the time, this was before Reformer Pro, even just a straight up Reformer. And there's a library here that comes with the plugin called polystyrene that I believe she used. And my favorite story about that was because I recorded that in my living room under with my packaging from my IKEA furniture under my dressing gown with a lavalier mic in my mouth in the middle of to get this super close sound. And I think that was just the story of like where that sound came from in my own library all the way through Paula's process into Game of Thrones. I think was fantastic, and like how that all fits together, I think is just an amazing thing. And yeah, just an amazing creative use of the technology from Paula's side as well. But people tell us all the time about they've used it to make UI stuff just with their mouths for and radio interference stuff, or like water effects or slime or God knows what. I mean, it can literally do anything with it, and it's amazing to hear what people do.
That's a really great story. And please keep your questions coming, everyone, if you have any more questions for Matt. Matt, how do you see Krotos evolving over the next couple of years?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, I mean, we want to just help you guys work faster, more creatively, and more efficiently. Kind of like we already touched on, I think like changes in the industry. It's a really growing industry. The demands are growing, and we want to keep responding to that. We're always interested in creative solutions. Also pragmatic solutions. We don't want to make something that's a pure technology that that hasn't got a practical application. And yeah, we would love to just keep making really creative tools to help you guys. And we're cooking up some cool stuff in the background that obviously I can't really talk about, but there's some exciting things coming down the pipeline that will hopefully make everyone's lives faster, easier, more creative, and hopefully more fun as well.
Very exciting. I'm intrigued to hear more about that down the road. Steve has another question. With Reformer Pro, are there any tips or tricks when recording our own sound pack or adding an existing library of sounds to it?
Sure. So something I would definitely recommend is treat each of these like a little instrument to itself. So in the same way that you wouldn't necessarily want an instrument that combines, your violins, your cellos, your violas, and your double basses into one great big mess, you want to have them separate and discrete. I would treat that in the same way. So if you're recording, a shirt, do a shirt, do it with lots of dynamic range. That will give you the best result out of the plugin, and as much variety as possible. And then once you've got that, you don't even have to edit it. You can just do single takes, the whole thing. And then you will need to put those in sort of individual folders once they're rendered out Pro Tools, and then you start throwing them in the plugin. So yeah, variation, dynamic range, keeping to a kind of coherent sound approach, that will get you the best results.
That's great. Thank you. While we wait for more questions, maybe Matt, since we have a little bit of time, do you want to demo a few more things for us, and maybe that will inspire some more questions from our audience?
Yeah, definitely. So since I've got Reformer Pro open, I'm gonna show some different examples here. So let's have a look what else I've got in my library, and let's look at some other ways that we could demonstrate them. So what are my disembowel extras? That just sounds too tempting not to click on, if you know what I mean. Okay, so another feature that I didn't get to show that I really love to use, particularly in this type of scenario when I'm going through libraries, just to audition really quickly, particularly, or another one is if you don't have a microphone, like maybe you're on the road and I don't know, you're between meetings or you're on a, on a plane or God knows what, You can open up this little panel, which is what we call the dynamic input. So basically this mimics an audio input, but just from a couple of sliders. So it's like a kind of virtual input. So this is great for just auditioning to see what a library is like, explore it a little bit. You can use that to also do really creative sound design. So actually, if I load up one of our libraries, Electronic Pro, so basically how this works is that you've got, this is kind of like an algorithmic, like notched filter, basically. So if we lower the bandwidth, sorry, really notching, and then we're basically just exploring the frequency range of whatever library I've opened up. So I put in an electronic one here, and I'm going to set the sort of variation to a reasonable level. And if I go all the way down in frequency now, so now I'm just getting this low rumble, which is only the low frequency sections of the library, right? So if I put this onto continuous mode, it's going to generate with variation, but just from the low frequency sections of the library. So now this kind of feels like we've got a giant ball rolling down a tunnel or something. But as I move the frequency slider up, you can start to kind of explore what else is in that library. So now we're getting a bit of low, mid kind of burble and whatnot. And now up the frequency. And now I'm just picking out just the high frequency content from that library, which could have its place, but now I'm kind of, maybe that inspires me to go in a certain direction or to use that sound as a layer for something else, or maybe that's perfectly fitting as it comes out. But it's a great way of like using these libraries in different ways. Like they become these instrumental things that you can explore and use as material to just get interesting layers and textures. And what I love to do when I'm just searching through stuff is open this up and just see what's in a library, just see what this one sounds like. So this nice kind of electrical one here, what's this one like? Okay, that's pretty cool. And you so but even just banging that slider around, I could see that even fitting to something that's almost like a background layer to a like sci-fi scene or some UI or transition effects or something like that. And just by doing that, I'm starting to get these ideas and be a little inspired by stuff I've got in the library. So, and this can just be automated as well. So you don't even have to use your voice if you don't want to. You can just automate the movement of these sliders and design sound that way as well. It's just, again, super powerful.
Hey, Matt, just to jump in with a quick question. Is the Reformer Pro XY panner also automatable?
Yes, absolutely is, yeah. So basically pretty much everything you see that's not, I think this switch might not be automatable, but everything else is automatable. So really flexible way of adjusting all this stuff. So yeah, again, if you want to move from one texture to another, yeah, you can totally do that. Yeah. So just a big yes, big thumbs up.
Great, thank you.
Cool, okay, well, I can venture through the library and see what else I can dig up since we've got Reformer Pro open. So that might inspire us to some other use cases. So, okay, so yeah, maybe some debris stuff. Again, I'll open up the dynamic input so I can keep talking. So yeah, so we've got some nice ice stuff here. Maybe we can build up like a little ice patch. So get this open, I'll search for what else I've got in terms of ice. Ice cracks, what's that one like? That's nice. If I then blend between the two, okay, that's nice. I can definitely imagine that being a nice tension layer for something, particularly if I'm feeding my microphone signal into it. Maybe I can add in, since I'm going for a wintry theme, maybe a large snowball. Yeah, that could work in that design as well. Maybe I'll look in for my last layer. Sorry, to search for ice, don't I? There we go. Or my ice smashing. What's that one like? Okay, yeah, no, that's not bad. Okay, so I've just put this in the middle. Yeah, I can. I can imagine that being a nice little swooping layer, or got this little sort of icy debris layer on something. Perhaps that's quite cool. So something else that we can actually do, if I go to, so something else in Reformer Pro that I didn't touch on, obviously because it was just a real blast through, is using it for like actual transient layers. So if this is going to work, which, okay, I'm just going to grab a piece of audio then. No, don't want that. There we go. Try again. Yeah, cool. So let's see what happens if we put this in. Okay, right. Try again. Okay, so we've got a what we call the transient engine in this as well. So basically, if you're just going to feed in a little impulse or a little kind of pop like that, instead of getting something that's more fluid, we can tell the engine to pick out like actual like transient things to maintain this really nice dynamic range of it. So I'm actually using the Glass Smash. It's actually from the Boom Destruction library. So I can go and just say, right, just give me from this take of Glass Smashes. Wow, that's turned into an enormous smash disaster. So don't do that. I don't know what happened there. What I was looking for was a nice, precise glass smash that I usually demonstrate really well, but that didn't happen. It's probably because I had my threshold too low, and I think the whole thing is getting a bit upset there. So I'll look for another library, try and demonstrate that differently. Okay, cool. Right. So I'll set my threshold a little bit higher that time, and I'll just go to the transient layer. Let's see what happens this time. Okay, cool. Right, now I'll just select that file. There we go. Cool. That was much more what I was looking for. Okay, so you can then use your voice or just this little impulse I've got from my vocal take to trigger a transient event as well. And then you can mix between like the transient qualities of the library and the more fluid ones with this main trans knob. So you can get these really dynamic things and then get something that's a bit more fluid sort of following it. And then what you could do is set up multiple layers to build up kind of, impact patches and then trigger them, with your voice or just like, me just banging on the table. So if I go up to another instance of the Glass Smash and I'll choose a different sound from it, let's see what that one sounds like. I need to activate this. Not sure what's happening there. Doesn't like that. Okay, fine. Let's try that one. That sound is just turning into a glass machine gun. That is not what we wanted. Yes, so when that works correctly, which it does most of the time, it always happens when you're choosing to demonstrate to other people. It's a way of like building up impacts and stuff like that as well. You can do that using the transient engine, or just as a way to explore a library. So by default that transient engine is off, but if you turn it on and then set a threshold to quite a high level, you're going to get the specifically little transient parts of each library will then come in as a layer that you can you can mix between using the main and transient knob. So if you're finding that your performance is lacking a little bit of transient character, you can engage that engine on the library that you're using and get that character back.
Very nice. Any other things you'd like to show us, Matt?
Sure. So I demonstrated since we were talking about the that sound morph library that I gave you a sneak preview into. I can actually give you a kind of little real world example of that. I've got a little SWAT video here. Hopefully, if I play this, we'll hear some weapons I've synced up here. So actually, I've got the wrong patch loaded there, and the guy in the middle fired off an enormous demolition explosion. So, maybe that's a weapon that the director was looking for. I'm not looking for that weapon. I'm actually looking for something a little bit more M16 like. So I'm going to swap the preset and let's see what that's like now. And we also managed to fire off some glass smashing from a Pro at the same time. So, you know, as you can see, I'm really starting to wing it now at the end of my session. Okay, so this is a much more like, you know, tangible real world use of like that library that we talked about. So, for example, the guy on the right, I've got on this track and I've just, you know, I just stepped through frame by frame and put in MIDI notes for each of those rounds. And for the other guy, I've got that longer note that I used before. Because he's doing a bit more of a burst. So I've got these notes just synchronized to each of the rounds because these guys are just firing off, you know, sort of single rounds. And cool. So the great thing about that workflow and in the scene and using that library that we talked about, which is the intervention one, is that I can just experiment with, once I've set those markers up, I just experiment with the different weapons that I've got here. So let's just try something else. I mean, I can't really see if that was a suppressed whatever or a, you know, whatever weapon that it was. So I can just experiment. And sometimes with these things, it's just, you know, the feel more than anything else. So let's just try something else, see how that feels, see if that maybe is more appropriate. Okay, yeah, that one could definitely work. Let's switch the other one out as well, see how that feels as well. Let's go for even something else. I mean, let's try the suppressed Remington shotgun. I believe it's a shotgun. Okay, that's probably not right. But again, you see how easy it is just to experiment. And I'm literally just pulling up the presets. I'm not processing them anymore. I'm not manipulating their speed or anything. I'm just experimenting really, really fast. And we've already got like a really tangible way of experimenting with different treatments for that scene, just really, really fast, which is great. And it's a really, really nice way to work. And
Matt, we got another audience question.
Awesome.
Yeah, from Christina. She's wondering if any of these tools from Krotos can create water drops or bubbling sounds.
They certainly can. That'll be Reformer Pro. And I can see James smiling there because he's probably done the same thing like this week. Yeah, Reformer Pro would definitely be the one to go for your water effects. Fantastic for that, just because again, that's a really, it's a really fluid thing. If you're looking for stuff that's fluid, that has that gesture, that movement, Reformer Pro is definitely the one to go for. So, actually, let's just see what I've got in terms of water. Oh, I've got some bubbles already. Look, so let me see if I can satisfy your curiosity straight away by loading that one up. I'm just going to do that because occasionally it just gets stuck. There we go. Okay, so these are my bubbles. Now I'll try the dynamic input again here. If I muted the track, yes, I have. If I up the frequency a little bit, maybe. There we go. So I've got a bubble layer. Let's see what else I've got in terms of water. I've got some dropping, some pouring, some splashing. Because there we go, some instant water effects. And that's just me manually moving a slider. I think if I was using my voice or audio, you would get something that's maybe even the nicer shape and the shape of something else that you maybe already have. So you can add a water layer to something, or God, sorry, hit the space bar and I fired off the SWAT team. Yeah, and remember that the great thing about Reformer Pro is that you guys have already built up amazing libraries of sounds. This is just a great way of really empowering the use of those libraries all over again. You're getting even more value from what you already have, let alone what comes out of the box with these things. So, these can be, your water sounds that and you know how they feel and you know how they sound and you know how they sit in the mix. This is just another way for you to manipulate them and get them to the shape that you want them to be.
Yeah, it's really exciting when you put it that way. Matt, can you explain the differences in bundles that you've shown here today and maybe even the pricing as well?
Sure, I can certainly explain the difference between them, and I may hand over to Sid to talk about the pricing. So we have 3 bundles: the Sound Design Bundle, Sound Design Bundle 2, and the Everything Bundle. So Sound Design Bundle is Reformer Pro, Dehumanizer, and Weaponizer. And Sound Design Bundle 2 includes Igniter. So you got that engine system in there as well. And then the Everything Bundle is all those plus a ton of libraries, plus our synth concept 2, and a bunch of other stuff. So depending on your budget, and maybe if you're using a particular workflow, or you have a particular need, one of those may be more appropriate to you. Something that we do offer as well as upgrades between those. So if you come in at a certain level and you realize you want to, stretch out your Krotos workflow a bit further, you can just upgrade and pay the price difference, which is a really flexible way of getting into the ecosystem. And I'll let Sid answer the question about pricing, because I can never remember what the prices are.
So pricing for the products, the Sound Design Bundle, the one which contains Dehumanizer, Weaponizer, and Reformer, that comes at around £700. It converts to whatever the dollar or euro variant is. And the Sound Design Bundle 2, which contains Dehumanizer, Reformer, Weaponizer, and Igniter. And with this, you get Weaponizer fully loaded and Igniter full tank, which is the entire library set as well. And that's £1,500. And the Everything Bundle, which contains all the software and every library that we've produced, the Krotos libraries, excluding third-party libraries, that's £2,000. And what we also offer, I'll be sending out a coupon code, which is for MPSE members and CAS members, everybody who's joining us. The coupon code is MPSE 2021, and that'll give you 30% off any of these prices. And you can use it for the next 2 months.
Wow, that's very generous, and yeah, exciting to hear that we can get a discount. We appreciate that, Sid.
Yeah, and the discount works on even individual products or individual sound libraries, anything that's not on sale.
Yep. So the upgrade paths again. So if you come in at one product, you can hop up to a bundle from one product, paying the price difference, etc., etc. So there's lots of places to enter into the ecosystem, and people seem to say that, yeah, particularly I don't remember a classic one with the Dehumanizer. I remember someone bought it and they said, yeah, it paid for itself within 24 hours, simply because of the workflow improvements that it offered. And we find that when people get a bundle, they find themselves using it all the time, like week in, week out. So it's a great investment for your workflow.
Absolutely. Looks like the questions have slowed down quite a bit. Matt or Sid, anything else you want to add about Krotos that you think everyone should know before we go?
I don't think so. One thing I'll just add is that all the products that I've shown today are available for a free 10-day demo, fully functional as well, including like a small amount of library material to get you familiar with the workflow. So yeah, go to the website, grab a demo, have a play for yourself if you've never had a chance to use them yet. And like I said, yeah, there's that coupon available for you guys. And yeah, thanks for having me and Sid along. And I hope you get a chance to have a play and enjoy using this stuff in your sound design workflow.
And thanks for having us.
No, thank you, Matt and Sid. This has been wonderful and really exciting to see how this all works in action. Thank you for walking us through all of it and for your time tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. And thanks for everyone for tuning in.
Thanks for having us. Have a good one, guys.
Have a good night.
Thank you, everybody.